On the eve of the college entrance exam, Lilith tempted her classmates to treat themselves to a good meal to ace their tests. There's a mouth-watering viral martial arts champion pancake stall by the school gate. Day student Lilith often munched on them in front of us, making our mouths water. Seeing Lilith's recommendation, classmates eagerly paid her to place orders, saying they'd been craving them for ages. But I warned them that street food might not be hygienic, and it's safer to stick with the school's plain congee and eggs. After all, these are crucial exams. Though reluctant, the classmates didn't complain and cancelled their orders one after another. Lilith, however, did as she pleased and even bought a deluxe package on the day of the college entrance exam. After the exam, Lilith performed exceptionally well, scoring 635, a sure ticket to a top-tier university. 985, I, on the other hand, fell short, scoring only 550, barely enough for a decent university. 211, with a significant drop in performance. On the day we returned to school, Lilith bragged about how she had eaten a Wujuan Yuan pancake on the day of the college entrance exam, and it put her in an incredibly good mood. While taking the test, ideas just flowed effortlessly. I understood everything at a glance, and even my guesses turned out right. She even tried to convince some classmates who didn't do well, saying the school's egg and rice porridge had no nutritional value and hindered clear thinking. That's why they underperformed. Otherwise, you could have gotten into a top-tier university like I did. Someone told you to eat eggs and plain congee, yet they totally bombed the exam themselves. Instantly, a few classmates who scored around 300 to 400 points shot me resentful looks. No matter how much I insisted that those scores had nothing to do with diet, they just wouldn't listen. They insisted I cover all their tuition fees for repeating the year. I had to take on multiple summer jobs, but it still wasn't enough to fund their lavish lifestyle. When I finally ran out of money, they brutally beat me and even lured me to the rooftop before pushing me off. When I came to, Lilith was enticing classmates to buy Wujuan Yuan pancakes, with proper nutritional support. Acing the college entrance exam is totally within reach. Hearing this, classmates flocked to place orders with her, remarking how her stellar grades made sense now that they knew about her daily nutrition regimen. In my past life, I tried to stop them and met a tragic end. This time, I'll watch them all suffer from stomach issues during the exam. Noticing my indifference, Lilith walked straight over with a cheerful smile and said, "Sharon, aren't you going to try some, if things go as usual tomorrow? School will just serve that bland congee and eggs again, definitely going to kill your performance." I could tell from Lilith's smile that she was up to no good, so I shook my head in refusal. Not hungry. The martial arts champion pancake stall by the school gate is a viral street food spot. They live stream daily to attract customers and business is booming. They even came up with a slogan to ride the wave of the national college entrance exams: "Eat the champion's pancake, become the top scholar." For a while, quite a few parents planned to get these for their kids on exam day for good luck. In my past life, I accidentally saw the vendor trimming their nails with scissors, worried it might be unsanitary. I tried to stop them, who knew my good intentions would be completely misunderstood. They even blamed me for their poor exam results. How ridiculous. This time around, I won't interfere. Let them eat. They'll be speechless after one bite. Do they really think Lilith aced the exam because of that pancake, and that I failed because of plain congee and eggs? Bullshit. On the day of the college entrance exam, Lilith had congee and eggs, while I had a Wujuan Yuan pancake. That day, I had just bought breakfast and returned to the classroom, but first went to the restroom. When I came back, I saw Lilith eating my breakfast. I was about to confront her, but she tossed me a Wujuan Yuan pancake. Said she suddenly craved congee and wanted to trade her champion-style baked flatbread for it, even boasted that her flatbread was a deluxe combo with egg and sausage, told me not to act smug since I was getting the better end of the deal. I was so annoyed, but had to eat it anyway. Figured it probably wasn't a big deal, right? Sigh, what else could I do? I couldn't exactly take the exam on an empty stomach. Ended up with terrible stomach pain during the test, made multiple bathroom trips, and completely bombed it. 1. My ranking plummeted from top of the class to average. Kissed my shot at a top-tier university goodbye. Meanwhile, Lilith, who stole my congee and eggs, aced the exam, snatched the top spot, and walked away with a 50,000 yuan scholarship, basking in all the glory. I always had a bad feeling about her in the past. Not only did she convince our classmates to eat street food before the college entrance exams, but she also stole my egg congee. Now that I think about it, Lilith did it on purpose. She must have known that pancake was unhealthy and deliberately sabotaged me, all just to steal my top spot in the class and grab the scholarship. After the fact, they even claimed I failed because of my plain congee and eggs, turning my classmates against me. What a despicable person. Hearing my response, Lilith furrowed her brow. "Everyone else is subscribing except you. Is that really appropriate?" I feigned surprise. "What do you mean? Are you trying to force me Lilith said repeatedly. No, there must be a reason, right? She was staring at me. I could sense the malice in her gaze, so I said casually, I love plain congee and eggs. What's it to you? Lilith looked at me for a moment, said nothing, and went back to urging classmates to order pancakes from her. Most students placed their orders right away, and the few who were hesitant got aggressively persuaded. Lilith even shouted out loud, there's strength in numbers, the more people join in, the better the results. She kept hyping everyone up, and even the guys at the bottom of the class who usually underperform were practically worshipping her. Everyone pinned their hopes on that pancake to turn their fate around. They also relentlessly pressured classmates who hadn't ordered to place their orders. We were under immense pressure, as if not ordering made us sinners. Before long, I was the only one left. Lilith came up to me with a few guys, putting on that fake sweet act. Sharon, everyone's ordered already. You're not going to be the only one who doesn't, right? You wouldn't want to ruin the vibe for everyone, would you? I couldn't be bothered to respond and just kept reviewing my notes. I've taken this exam in a past life. So many concepts feel vaguely familiar. I'm confident I'll do even better this time. Sharon, are you deaf or what? You got first place yourself. But you don't give a damn about the rest of us. A really aggressive guy slammed his hand on my desk. I was startled, and when I looked up and saw Lilith's smug expression behind him, my heart sank. This guy is totally whipped for her, constantly fawning over Lilith like a lovesick puppy. Too bad she's a top scorer with 600 plus points, just toying with a loser like him who barely scrapes 400. I scowled and snapped. Have you lost your damn mind? You think a pancake will make you king of the world? With that IQ, you might as well kiss college entrance exams goodbye. The boy's face flushed crimson. You dare insult me? He's about to throw hands. I'm not scared one bit. Got a problem with what I said. Couldn't force your way, so now you're resorting to violence. Go ahead, make a move. None of you are getting away with this. Lilith stopped the sycophant with a frown and said, Sharon, are you really trying to sabotage class unity? Using moral high ground against me again? Too bad I'm not buying it. Are you out of your mind? How can eating a pancake make a bunch of little sweethearts appear? Don't you dare insult Lilith. The simp couldn't help but snap at me. I sneered. So what if I do? Keep yapping and I'll tell the homeroom teacher. Then none of you will get any. Lilith immediately accused. Are you going to snitch to the homeroom teacher? If everyone fails the exam, it'll be all your fault. Several boys immediately glared with anger. Get lost. You think everyone's as twisted as you? I snapped. You need proof for accusations. Slander can land you in jail. The homeroom teacher is still alive. Lilith's expression shifted as she let out a light huff. Fine. Don't eat it then. When everyone aces the exam and you're the only one who fails, you'll regret it. Her sycophant immediately chimed in. Yeah, don't come begging us for a bite of the top scorer's cake tomorrow. I waved my hand impatiently. Who the hell gets this annoying at night? I'm the top student in my grade. Why would I believe this crap? You guys look more like a bunch of clowns. Lilith and the others stormed off in anger. As evening self-study was about to end, the homeroom teacher came in to give some final reminders, briefly mentioning food choices. During the college entrance exam days, it's best not to suddenly change your diet to avoid getting an upset stomach. There have been plenty of such cases in previous year's exams. Upon hearing this, all the students turned to look at Lilith. After the teacher left, many classmates asked Lilith to cancel their subscriptions. This made the latter absolutely furious. You actually believe that? Clearly, it's just some sour grape tattling to the homeroom teacher. I just don't want you to do well on the exam. They hesitated again. That's when I rushed over and yelled, Lilith, are you an idiot? What does this have to do with me? How come I never noticed how disgusting you were before? If I were to tattle, do you really think the teacher would just give a warning? Are you out of your mind? You blame me for everything. That's absolutely ridiculous. Lilith's face flushed bright red from the scolding, and she suddenly buried her head in her arms on the desk, sobbing. I just wanted everyone to enjoy the scholar's pancake and do better on the exams. What did I do wrong? Why are you doing this to me? Sobbing. Suddenly, hostile gazes from all around were fixed on me. I was utterly contemptuous. How dare you slander me just for the so-called greater good? Unbelievable. I turned and walked away without a second thought for those people. I saw right through them long ago. They couldn't care less when it doesn't concern them, and when you try to help, they not only show no gratitude but even kick you when you're down. Head back to the dorm and get some proper sleep. Tomorrow, you'll get to enjoy my healthy and delicious congee with eggs. After washing up back at the dorm, I just lay in bed and heard from my roommate that, in the end, no one canceled their subscription because everyone was too embarrassed by what Lilith did, and then she went and pinned the blame on me again. What a piece of work. The night before the college entrance exam was so nerve-wracking. Yet I didn't dare say much, even with my past experience. In the middle of the night, someone muttered, "Why worry when you've got a sesame cake? Those without one probably can't even sleep." Absolutely unbelievable. 3 years of hard work, all riding on a sesame cake to turn the tables. Who cares about her? I slept like a log. The next morning, I woke up even earlier than I ever had in my past life. After quietly washing up, I got ready to head out. The morning broadcast had been on for a while by then. My roommate had just gotten up. If I finished washing up now and went to the cafeteria, I should still make it in time. But not only did they not get up, they even made fun of me for having to go buy breakfast myself. We get to eat the champion's grand pancake. I shook my head without a word, wolfed down my meal at the cafeteria, and returned to the classroom with an empty lunchbox. At that moment, Lilith was enthusiastically handing out pancakes. Everyone's face was beaming with the joy of impending victory in the college entrance exams. "Lilith, this giant pancake smells amazing. I feel like I could even score 600 on the exam now." The simp took a big bite of the pancake, with a sycophantic grin on his face. "I can already smell it. I can't wait to dig in. I'm going to make it into a top-tier university." A male student took a deep, epic inhale, filling his lungs. With a look of pure bliss on his face, Lilith glanced at me and said with a laugh, "I got up early to have the master make this. I've been waiting forever." "Thanks, Lilith. Thanks, Lilith." The students all expressed their thanks. The moment she said that, I grew suspicious. Since when was someone like her so kind-hearted? Sure enough, I noticed many classmates looking uncomfortable, even disgusted, glancing hesitantly at Lilith. They wanted to speak up. But seeing her being the center of attention, they held back and reluctantly took a bite of the flatbread. "Holy crap, I saw several people puking, and you're still eating this. Is this even from last night?" I ignored them, went back to my desk, tucked my lunchbox away securely, and started reading. She won't be able to sit still. Sure enough, Lilith came over shortly after, feigning confusion as she asked why I hadn't gone to the restroom. Is this girl keeping an eye on me every single day? "I already went in the dorm," I replied without turning my head. "Oh, so you're not having breakfast?" Lilith asked again. I ignored her, but she kept pestering me and pulled out a flatbread. I happened to have an extra one. "Want to try it?" Before I could say anything, her simp couldn't stay quiet. "Lilith, why are you giving it to her?" "Oh, I just had something a bit heavy and feel like having some plain congee to cut through the richness." "I'm sure Sharon won't mind, right?" Lilith said as she reached for my lunchbox. I said, "I don't eat flatbread. Are you deaf or something?" Lilith's expression shifted slightly. "Sharon, how could you say something so hurtful?" Her lapdog scolded me, but I couldn't care less. "My fault. You didn't say anything when someone was shamelessly clinging to you." "Lilith, don't give her any. She doesn't deserve to eat something this good." The simp snapped angrily. Lilith said nothing and returned to her seat. After morning self-study came the reading session, and I could feel someone staring at my back the whole time. I paid it no mind. When the reading session ended, I got up and pretended to head to the restroom, but turned back right after stepping out of the classroom. Then I saw Lilith rummaging through my lunchbox. "What are you doing?" I shouted. Lilith looked a bit guilty, but it was quickly replaced by anger. "Where's your breakfast?" I quickly walked up to her and scolded. "What does my breakfast have to do with you? Are you trying to steal it? Aren't you going to eat your big pancake?" Lilith argued that she was worried I hadn't eaten breakfast and specifically brought me the big pancake. I was about to refuse when I suddenly caught a whiff of something rancid, and couldn't help but gag. "Get away. What is this? It stinks. It's gone bad. Are you trying to give me food poisoning? Did you buy this yesterday? Are you trying to make me sick?" The barrage of questions made Lilith's face darken, and she snapped at me. "Don't you dare slander me. Everyone's eating just fine. Find my foot." I saw Triple X rushing to the bathroom. I fired back immediately, then proceeded to provoke them. "If you think it's not spoiled, why don't you take a bite? I haven't seen you eat any." Just as Lilith was in a dilemma, her simp snatched the flatbread and glared at me. "Who said this flatbread is spoiled? It's absolutely delicious." As he spoke, he wolfed it down, pretending it tasted amazing. I was dying of laughter. You could smell it had gone bad from a meter away, yet he still managed to eat it. "The college entrance exam is about to start. If you get food poisoning now, it's all over. 3 years of hard work down the drain." The simp immediately stopped eating, gritted his teeth and said it was fine, then demanded I apologize. "Why should I apologize when you didn't even finish it?" She wouldn't even take a bite. "Why should I apologize? Get lost already. Don't make me sick to my stomach." I waved my hand impatiently. The two stormed back to their seats in a huff. Soon after, I saw the simp dash out of the classroom, risking getting caught by the teacher to buy bread and milk for Lilith. Then he scurried off to the restroom clutching his backside. The teacher showed up moments later, demanding to know who'd been running around. Before anyone else could speak, I tattled, "Teacher, Triple X bought milk and bread for Lilith. Weird, didn't she have a sesame pancake this morning? Maybe she was too nervous to eat it. The classmates immediately started whispering among themselves. What sesame pancake? You can eat whatever you want after the exam. The homeroom teacher didn't notice anything unusual and told us to quietly review our lessons and get in the right mindset. Seeing Lilith's awful expression, I was feeling just fine. It took a while before the pathetic follower returned to the classroom, looking completely drained, and got an earful from the homeroom teacher. I immediately sneered. Was it the sesame flatbread that upset your stomach? Just as the love-struck fool was about to answer, the homeroom teacher sensed something was off and demanded, what sesame flatbread? Didn't I tell you all not to eat random stuff? You didn't have the cafeteria's plain congee and eggs. The whole class hung their heads. Guilt written all over their faces. The sycophant muttered under his breath that it wasn't nutritious, then grinned and claimed he'd gotten sick from eating something else. Ugh, what a pathetic bootlicker. The teacher didn't say much, just reminded us to take care of personal hygiene before the exam and avoid wasting time on bathroom breaks during the test, with half an hour of self-study time left. Many students kept rushing to the restroom clutching their stomachs, so many that some had to go to another floor when the bathrooms filled up. I could tell Lilith was feeling incredibly guilty. She was even eating her bread with excessive caution. Of course, I couldn't resist stirring the pot and said loudly, Lilith, didn't you have any of the sesame cakes? Why are you still eating bread? I saw XXX, 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 and XX all rushing to the restroom. You didn't buy those just for your classmates and skip them yourself, did you? The whole class immediately stared at Lilith, especially those clutching their stomachs, their eyes filled with venom. I noticed Lilith's face had turned pale, and I continued speaking. If this messes up the college entrance exams, TSK. The simp had just returned from the bathroom and suddenly stood up, cursing, Sharon, stop talking nonsense. Lilith is just still hungry, ha, go empty your bowels. Don't stink up the whole exam hall later. I pinched my nose in disgust. The simp got flustered and started making excuses. My diarrhea has nothing to do with the flatbread. Didn't plenty of others eat it just fine? They must have eaten something else that messed them up. See, I'm not even having it anymore. Pfft, an earth-shattering wet fart grossed out the whole class. The simp's words became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and he immediately clutched his backside and bolted to the restroom. I watched Lilith sitting there in silence, but just as I was about to speak, she buried her face in her arms on the table and started sobbing. Damn, I just wanted everyone to enjoy some delicious flatbreads. What did I do wrong? It's not like I made the pancakes. Suddenly, all eyes in the classroom were on me. Sharon, you're being ridiculous. It's just an upset stomach. A few trips to the bathroom and it'll be fine. Exactly. Why are you being so aggressive about this? The exam is coming up, and who knows what she's really up to. Exactly, probably worried about losing that top spot. Well, I just threw my hands up in disbelief. That pancake's gone completely rotten. She's trying to poison you, you idiots. Unbelievable. They immediately got all worked up, saying they'd be willing even if it killed them, and told me to stop yapping. We're doing this of our own free will. Well, if that's the case, then I'm relieved. I didn't say anything more. Just so you know, I warned you, don't come blaming me later. We don't need your reminders. We'll take responsibility ourselves. What more could I even say? After reviewing a bit longer, the bell rang, and students gradually packed their things, getting ready to enter the exam hall. I watched several classmates still rushing to the restroom, scoffed inwardly, and paid no further attention, putting it out of my mind. The college entrance exam is no joke. I settled into my seat, the test papers were handed out promptly, and a wave of exhilaration washed over me as I recognized the familiar questions. I dove right into answering them with gusto, but then, a thunderous fart shook the entire exam hall. A boy was clutching his stomach, gritting his teeth, clearly battling diarrhea but refusing to leave, stubbornly holding it in. The teacher was almost at her breaking point, standing before him ready to offer comfort, only to see his eyes red and brimming with tears. I feel like something's about to come out. The teacher couldn't hold back and started retching. 02. The next second, the boy bolted straight for the restroom in a frantic rush. I know that guy. He was one of the boys following Lilith yesterday who pressured me into ordering those flatbreads. The absolute legend who thinks flatbread can change his destiny. Also the same ruthless guy who pushed me off the rooftop in a past life. Go ahead, pull it off, then throw the crap at Lilith. I went just as crazy in my past life, only wrote the essay title and lost 50 points. It made the rest of my exams a blur, underperformed, and my total score dropped by at least 100. Thankfully, that doesn't happen now. Everything's going smoothly. I even finished the exam 45 minutes early and went into a frenzy of checking. I saw the guy making repeated dashes to the restroom until he was completely emptied out, and in the final minutes, he just collapsed on the desk in tears. Poor guy. The bell rang, marking the end of the Chinese language section of the college entrance exam. After I handed in my paper, I left. Seeing that guy still crying as I walked away just felt so satisfying. So, it's Lilith's turn to be in trouble, huh? But just as I was heading back to the dorm after getting my meal, I was immediately surrounded by classmates. What the hell? What's going on? Before I could even say a word, a girl was glaring at me with pure venom in her eyes. Sharon, how could you be so vicious? Oh my god, what did I do wrong? You knew that pancake was spoiled, yet you still let us eat it. What were you thinking? Give us an explanation, or forget about taking your college entrance exams. A boy with a crazed look on his face even tried to hit me. Are you out of your minds? What does this have to do with me? Lilith tried to poison me with a spoiled pancake. I only realized it was bad when I smelled that foul, sour stench. Besides, she's the one who bought it. Shouldn't she have known the pancake was rotten? Why are you coming after me instead of confronting her? The whole class was stunned, but that girl still refused to back down. Then why are you the only one who didn't order the flatbread? Did you know she was going to harm us all along? So why didn't you all follow my lead and not buy it? So instead of confronting Lilith, the one who actually wronged you, why come to me? I just don't like flatbread, that's all. The teacher even warned us not to change our eating habits. You're the ones who didn't listen. I've been eating plain congee and eggs for 3 years. What's wrong with liking what I eat? We've got math this afternoon. If you keep harassing me, I'll report you to the homeroom teacher. None of you will make it to the college entrance exams. With that, I shoved past them. Before leaving, I turned back with a cold smirk. Even Lilith didn't eat it. She set you up on purpose. Why come after me when I'm innocent? Go confront her instead. I told you this morning there was a problem, but you all were as stubborn as mules. Didn't you say you'd take responsibility if anything went wrong? Didn't you say you were happy to eat spoiled food? Weren't you the ones who said not to blame us, and now you have the nerve to come to me? The classmates were all ashamed, and soon a few of them started to break down. Turns out, Lilith made a run for it under the cover of her simps. As if running away wasn't enough, she even accused me of being in on it. The classmates, caught up in the heat of the moment, had no choice but to come after me. This is insane. Now they all know it has nothing to do with me. I'm breaking down in tears. Wah. I didn't even finish my essay. I'm doomed. I haven't even started writing. I only wrote the title. I only got as far as the dictation part. They poured out their grievances to each other, growing more remorseful and furious by the minute. Damn it. Let's confront her after school. Before the afternoon math exam, I followed my roommate and watched from a distance as they cornered the sneaky day student Lilith at the school gate, demanding an explanation. You bastard. The pancakes you bought us were spoiled. You made us fail our Chinese exam. You owe us an explanation. Several boys had bloodshot eyes. Their grades were already bad, and now things were even worse. The simp desperately defended Lilith, arguing that she meant well and it wasn't her fault. She didn't even make the pancakes. Exactly. I didn't make the pancakes. Why are you blaming me? Lilith's eyes were red and teary. Then why didn't we see you eat it? Don't tell us you weren't trying to poison us. Several classmates snapped angrily. Who says I didn't eat? I did. I ate it off campus. Lilith is frantically making excuses. Besides, plenty of people are perfectly fine. If you have a problem, take it up with the pancake vendor. I was just trying to do you a favor by bringing these. How is that my fault? You're all just picking on me because I'm a girl. Wah. The moment she started crying, her simps went berserk and started yelling at them like mad. They got a bit flustered, but they didn't back down. Sharon said you did this to us on purpose. You owe us an explanation. Wait, me too. I'm starting to panic. Lilith became visibly agitated upon hearing this. Sharon is such an asshole, but she was the one who told me to. She kept crying and refused to talk, until her classmates pressed her hard and she finally said I made her do it. Instantly, the whole class turned on me, yelling angrily and threatening to beat me up. I can't believe it. These idiots didn't even stop to think that I had zero motive to do something like that. This damn sign is so full of it. Lilith, how dare you slander me again? What does this have to do with me? I rushed over and yelled. Lilith suddenly looked guilty but put on an even more pitiful act. Sharon, I didn't mean to rat you out. I'm so sorry. Now I look even more like the culprit. Screw your apology, I fumed, glaring at the security guard nearby. Sir, please call the police. I refuse to believe someone can falsely accuse me in broad daylight. The old man immediately pulled out his senior-friendly phone and handed it to me. I took it and was about to call the police. Seeing I was going to call the police, my classmates swallowed their colorful language and watched quietly to see how things would unfold. Lilith immediately couldn't sit still. Don't call the police. Everyone immediately stared at her. She panicked and said she needed to study for her exams, suggesting they talk after the tests. I completely lost it. Screw this exam. How dare you slander me and still expect to take the test? Nobody's taking it. I'm calling the cops. With that, I immediately dialed 110. Lilith panicked and shot a desperate look at her lackey. The lackey immediately lunged to snatch the phone. I screamed hysterically. Lilith, what do you mean by that? Feeling guilty, aren't you? Still trying to frame me? What possible reason would I have to harm my classmates? The students immediately understood and started hurling vicious insults at Lilith. It's her, the guilty one. What on earth are you doing? A familiar voice suddenly rang out, and the students immediately fell silent, staring at the newcomer in hushed fear, the homeroom teacher. And she's furious, teacher. Lilith ran crying into the teacher's arms. Getting the first word in, she said she'd kindly brought them pancakes, only to be met with insults. The other students were frantic, complaining that they had terrible stomach aches from the sesame cake she brought, and ended up failing their Chinese exam. The students burst into tears one after another, creating a deeply moving scene. Then go talk to the vendor. What does that have to do with me? I just brought the cakes. Lilith was in tears, looking utterly heartbroken. How dare you accuse me of deliberately bringing you spoiled pancakes? How was I supposed to know they were bad? Sobs. She even shot me a deliberate glare. The homeroom teacher immediately grasped the severity of the situation and flew into a rage. Didn't I tell you not to change your eating habits? How could you not tell me about something this serious? Do you even see me as your homeroom teacher anymore? This is utterly irresponsible behavior toward your own lives. I'm absolutely furious. The homeroom teacher was screaming at the students like a madman. The students were all reduced to tears and didn't dare talk back. Seeing the smug look on Lilith's face, I immediately spoke up. Teacher, it was Lilith who insisted it would boost their grades. That's why they bought it. She even pressured those who hadn't purchased it to do so. Lilith's face darkened as she snapped at me to stop making baseless accusations. But her protests were drowned out by the chorus of complaints from our classmates. Exactly, it's all her fault, and she didn't even eat any herself. She tricked us into eating it. The homeroom teacher immediately fixed her gaze on Lilith and began to reprimand her. And you, why did you bring those pancakes for the class? Lilith tearfully protested, saying she meant well, but she still got scolded. Meant well. What kind of good intention is that? Since when does meaning well mean bringing street food? Lilith burst into loud sobs while her obsessive admirer barked frantically. Eventually, the homeroom teacher reluctantly let us take the exam first, promising to investigate the matter afterward. The math class passed by quietly and quickly, still posing no challenge to me since I had some recollection from my past life. After class, the students rushed to confront Lilith, only to find out she had already slipped away again. The desperate admirer frantically blocked his classmates from chasing after her, urging them to take their anger out on the street vendor instead of his Lilith. The classmates rushed to the school gate only to find their homeroom teacher, police officers, and a group of school administrators gathered outside. Lilith was also stopped for questioning, and the classmates swarmed around her under Lilith's confrontation. The street vendor quickly confessed everything. Turns out he had already told Lilith last night that he wouldn't have time to do that much the next day. She insisted on doing it anyway, saying it was fine even if it was done the night before. I never said that. Boss, don't you dare slander a girl like me, Lilith screamed, her eyes reddening and welling up with tears, a picture-perfect victim. Suddenly, everyone turned on the vendor, furious. What the hell? That's no excuse for selling stale, moldy pancakes. The owner went into full self-destruct mode. I know it's wrong, and I admit it's my fault, but this girl is no saint either. Lilith offered no further explanation, simply weeping uncontrollably. Immediately, more people began cursing the boss for his shamelessness in bullying a young girl. The boss flushed crimson with rage. I immediately raised my voice and declared, "Exactly, boss, do you have any proof? How dare you slander a girl's reputation?" Lilith waited at your stall for a long time this morning. At the mention of evidence, the stall owner suddenly came to his senses and shouted that he had live stream footage. Instantly, Lilith's face turned pale. She shot me a glare and immediately burst into tears while speaking to the police. "Officer, he's selling contaminated food. Arrest him right now." The officer frowned slightly, sensing something was off, and spoke calmly. "If you really said that, you could be considered an accomplice." Lilith immediately burst into tears out of fear. "Officer, I'm just a kid. I'm not even an adult yet." The teacher also pointed out that she was just a student. The officer hesitated. I spoke up again. "Yeah, it's just the college entrance exam. I can always retake it next year." Everyone was stunned. "That's right. This affects the futures of over a dozen students. How can we just brush it off like it's nothing?" Sharon, you jerk. Are you just afraid I'll outscore you on the exam and snatch that scholarship? Is that why you're targeting me like this? Lilith looked absolutely terrifying. I had a look of utter injustice on my face. You tried to trick me into eating that flatbread today, and you even accused me of conspiring with you to buy it. What's wrong with me speaking a few words of fairness? Lilith tried to speak, but her classmates turned on her, hurling insults and demanding an explanation. She's already an adult. I just gave her a birthday gift last month. A classmate spilled the beans. The situation only calmed down after parents showed up. I heard they're waiting until after the Gaokao to discuss compensation. On the afternoon of the second day, the final exam bell rang for the Gaokao. After handing in my paper, I walked over to the boy from my exam hall. Seeing he still seemed dazed, I sighed and said, "You could have gotten into a top-tier university." His eyes instantly turned bloodshot, and his whole body trembled. Soon after, the homeroom teacher held a brief class meeting, gave some instructions, and dismissed most of the students. Then, about a dozen parents and police officers entered. I didn't pay attention to how things ended. I went back to the dorm to pack up and get ready for dinner with my parents and younger sister. My dad helped me load my things into the car, and we chatted while stuck in traffic. Suddenly, an ambulance wove through the gridlocked traffic, and parents' cars quickly made way. I had a gut feeling, opened the dorm group chat, and immediately got the news. Lilith was stabbed and bleeding heavily. The assailant tried to take their own life but was stopped by the police. Turns out, Lilith's parents refused to pay a single penny, first blaming the vendor, then accusing the other kids of eating recklessly. They even had the nerve to demand compensation for emotional distress and their travel expenses. Then, one of the boys, after being viciously berated by his mother, snapped, pulled out a hidden knife, and stabbed her. I heard it was a serious injury, but I didn't dare ask for details. Not my problem anyway. Karma's a bitch. In the end, Wuzhuangyuan Bake Shop got busted for a ton of food safety violations, fined, shut down, and now facing massive lawsuits. The guy who stabbed someone got sentenced to over a decade in prison. When his mom dropped him off, she finally broke down in tears, swearing she'd never pressure him again. Lilith's paralyzed. She'll spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. After learning the news, the desperate admirer relentlessly pursued her. After being rejected, he reportedly did something outrageous to her and ended up getting sentenced to 10 years in prison. All the classmates who ate the spoiled flatbread failed their exams and had to retake the year. Meanwhile, I topped the city's college entrance exam results, and my phone was flooded with calls from Tsinghua and Peking University. Ugh, I'm so torn about this. Story 2. My sister and I are the last twin lotus of fertility in the Beastkin continent. When we took human form, the heavenly Tao bestowed upon us 2 fertility arts to choose from. My sister, finding childbirth too arduous, swiftly claimed the lesser art, surrogacy. Thus I was left with the greater art, multiple births per conception. We married the Dragon Prince and Tiger Prince respectively. My sister, being promiscuous by nature, secretly carried affairs with various beastmen, yet fearing her infidelity would be exposed for childbirth, she repeatedly forced me to bear her illegitimate offspring. I was compelled to deliver litter after litter of hybrid creatures. The entire Orsish continent is rife with vile rumors about me, branding me a common whore. My husband, the Dragonkin Crown Prince, refused to hear my defense, calling me a base, wanton harlot. Every time I bore his beastkin offspring, he'd flay them alive and force me to swallow their remains. Unable to endure such inhuman torment, I leapt from the 10,000-meter beast god peak, shattering every bone upon impact. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day of my metamorphosis. Just like in my past life, my elder sister was the first to seize the surrogacy art, but to my delight, the remaining art had transformed into bloodline evolution. I quickly and quietly assimilated it into my body. In this life, every child conceived within me shall be cherished without exception. I shall resurrect the long-extinct mythical beasts of mountains and seize to roam the beastkin continent once more. The day of my sisters and my metamorphosis arrived as destined. Mighty beastkin warriors from all corners of the realm converged upon our birthplace, surrounding it like an impenetrable siege. When my sister and I undergo transformation, we're blessed with divine fertility magic to help the beastkin race prosper. Even before her transformation, my sister would sway her body with the wind, flaunting her irresistible charm. She pretended to care for me. Little Juno, you're so naive. Let me choose first. I'll leave the best fertility magic for you. She said the exact same thing in our past life. She did choose the low-tier surrogacy spell to bear her child, leaving me with the high-tier fertility magic that produces multiple offspring at once. Back then, I was filled with gratitude, believing we shared an unbreakable sisterly bond. Little did I know, my sister had planned from the start to use me as her breeding vessel and scapegoat. Night after night she entwined with different beast men, while I endured the agony of childbirth again and again, becoming the most reviled woman in the eyes of countless beastfolk. At this thought, an overwhelming hatred surged through my heart. Since Providence has granted me the second chance, I swear to rewrite my destiny in this lifetime. Just then, twin bolts of heavenly lightning struck down. Before us materialized 2 golden beams, shimmering with conception magic visible only to my sister and me, drawing on my past life's memories. I immediately dashed toward the glow on the left. That must be a low-tier conception art surrogacy through womb borrowing, but when my vision cleared, I realized it was a celestial tier conception art I'd never encountered before, bloodline evolution. As I stood bewildered, my sister's murmuring reached my ears. Womb borrowing, that means no childbirth pain. Perfect, you're the one. Hearing this, my confusion turned into excitement. Clearly, my sister wants me to take the fall for her lust again, but this time I'm smashing her alibi to pieces. With this bloodline evolutionary conception art, I'll never have to bear disgrace again. Whether it's snakes, bears, dogs, or any other beast that enters my womb, I can evolve them into long-extinct primordial divine creatures like the Taotai, a ferocious beast, Shengliu, nine-headed serpent, or Baze. Legend says this white mythical creature knows the names and weaknesses of all demons. Realizing this, I quickly absorbed the celestial tier fertility art of bloodline evolution into my body while my sister wasn't looking. My sister accepted the surrogate pregnancy technique and probed. Juno, I saved the better one for you. What fertility art did you get? I lied. It's a multiple birth technique. A smug smile flickered across her face before she could hide it. Suddenly, she raised her voice to the surrounding orcs. It's your turn to choose wives now. Vanessa, won't compete for attention, but my sister Juno is ambitious by nature. She wants everything she lays eyes on. That's why I gave her the advanced fertility magic. You should prioritize her too. In our past life, she pulled the same manipulative act, building herself up while planting the seeds to shift blame onto me. At that moment, a towering, formidable figure stepped forward first, clad in golden armor. He was Kale, my husband from a past life, as the crown prince of the Dragonkin. Kale's true form was a golden dragon, granting him mating priority across the Beastmen continent. When his gaze met mine, I instantly averted my eyes. I refused to be chosen as his bride again. That tyrannical, domineering man, in my past life, no matter how I explained, he was convinced I was a tainted woman, forcing me to endure the agony of losing our child again and again. Yet he still came to me and took my hand. My sister Vanessa looked somewhat dejected nearby. She thought portraying herself as a pure white lotus would make Kale choose her. But what Kale valued most was fertility magic. Had my sister not acted out of jealousy in our past life, making me bear 9 canine offspring first, if only I'd helped Kale sire 9 dragons instead, perhaps my fate would have been different, but none of that matters now. In this lifetime, I won't marry him again. Kale tipped my hand and whispered tenderly, Juno, will you be my dragon consort? Thunderous applause immediately erupted around us, to the orc clans. Kale's union with me would surely breed the true dragon, making him the rightful contender for the Orc King's throne. These years of endless strife between orc factions have left the lands bleeding, crying out for a new monarch to unite the Orcish continent. I hesitated, searching for a way to refuse him without revealing my reincarnated nature, but in that moment of hesitation, Kale suddenly shoved me away with brutal force. He glared at me with disgust and spat, "Filthy wench. Even with your high-tier fertility magic, I'd never marry you." I froze, realizing he too had been reborn. In our past life, I'd laced his meal with soulbane poison before leaping off the cliff. Apparently, he'd ingested it. The Orcish crowd erupted in uproar at Kale's treatment of me. They all turned to Kale, demanding an explanation. After all, I was the heaven-blessed fertile maiden. Kale glared down at me with contempt, even spitting in my direction. He swept his gaze across the crowd and declared in a judge's tone, "As a golden dragon, I possess the gift of foresight. When I took Juno's hand just now, I foresaw her birthing a brood of inferior beastkin, nothing but worthless mongrels. That's why I'd never marry her. She's clearly a shameless adulteress. Any man who weds her is just asking to be cuckolded." The orcs exchanged bewildered glances, their faces a picture of disbelief. Vanessa then approached me, shaking her head in exasperation as if disappointed by my failure to improve. Pointing at me, she scolded, "Little Juno, what am I to do with you? Even after your transformation, you still cling to those vile old habits. You used to flirt with every stray dog that crossed our path, desperate for its attention. How many times must I tell you, sister, a woman should be demure and pure as jade? When will you learn?" I was absolutely livid. She was clearly describing herself. I shouted back, "That's not true at all. I'd never do such things. They're slandering me," but no one would listen to my explanation. Kale and Vanessa's joint slander had drawn me in the orcs' fury. They stared at me with disgust, hurling insults word by word. Who would have thought someone so innocent-looking could be this shameless? This desecrates the sacred gift of fertility from the heavens. Do you truly believe we orcs have no moral boundaries? Enjoy playing dirty, do you? Next time we'll throw an Orcish ball. Let's see you perform for everyone. My face turned ashen as my entire body trembled. Never did I imagine that in this reborn life, such vile words would come faster and fiercer than in my previous existence. That bastard Kale, my ex-husband, couldn't care less about my feelings. He strode straight toward my sister Vanessa, took her hand, and planted a tender kiss. While I value lineage, reputation matters more. I'll only marry a pure woman like Vanessa. Vanessa flushed with flattered embarrassment, her face a picture of coy delight. She soon turned to me with a smug look, saying meaningfully, "Well then, dear sister, it's your turn to choose." The orc spectators immediately scattered in all directions, avoiding me like the plague. In the end, only a few reputation-defying fiend beasts remained before me. Those fiend beasts eyed me with predatory gleam, drool dripping from their jaws as they made their greedy declarations. Juno, since proper orcs won't have you, come home with me. Don't let my python form fool you. My skills rival any dragonborn's. I run a pleasure house. Whatever your taste, I can satisfy it. My stomach turned as these orcs' vile nature revealed itself before me. Even Kale seemed unable to stomach it. Remembering I was once his wife, he glared at me contemptuously. "Juno," he sneered, "if you could behave with some decency, I might take you back as a servant." Vanessa immediately bristled and urged me, "Juno, hurry up and choose a husband. With your current reputation, you can't afford to be picky. You should be grateful any beastman would still have you. Pick one at random now, or you'll end up a widow." I ignored her, lifting my gaze toward the majestic Beast Mountain in the distance. That's where my chosen husband awaits. When they saw me looking toward Beast Mountain, the beastman's eyes gleamed with malicious delight. Deep within the Beast Mountains dwells the Orc King in name only. In my past life, I'd heard countless variations of legends about that Orc King. Some say he was confined to the Beast Mountain Palace by divine will for his tyranny, forbidden to leave. Others claim he should have perished long ago, that the missing orcs across the continent were his victims, sustaining his wretched existence by stealing their beast cores through dark arts. Opinions vary, but nearly all are negative. Yet in my past life, when I leaped off the cliff, I accidentally uncovered the Beast King's secret. As I descended toward the Beast Mountain Palace, I saw the Beast King taking a group of young beastkin out for fresh air. Those young beastkin were all disabled infants abandoned by major beast clans. Typically, when such flawed offspring are born, beast clans would throw them off Beast Mountain to perish. I refuse to believe that an orc king with such compassion could truly be the infamous monster his people describe. More importantly, as the sovereign of all beasts, his royal bloodline embraces every creature kin. Union with him could produce offspring of any beastfolk lineage, perfect camouflage against Vanessa's fabricated accusations. Thus, the orc king stands as my ideal lifetime consort. I quickened my pace toward the Beast King's palace, with a jeering mob of orcs trailing behind me. That Juno must be desperate if she's setting her sights on the Orc King himself. They say the Orc King has no interest in women. Juno's scrawny frame wouldn't even make a decent snack for him. Maybe that's exactly Juno's plan, using her status as the Orc Queen to fool around behind his back. I ignored them and soon reached the mountain path before the Beast King's palace. The orcs, however, still feared the lingering authority of the Beast King and dared not follow further. As I pressed forward step by step, Kale's voice soon echoed behind me, "Juno, don't think hiding in the Beast King's palace gives you free reign. That orc monarch won't spare you a second glance. If you value your life, come with me now. Serve your sister as her handmaiden." I halted mid-step and turned to face him. A cold smile played on my lips as I replied indifferently, "Isn't this our first meeting? What concern are my affairs of yours?" Kale froze momentarily. In my past life, consumed by guilt for repeatedly bearing monstrous offspring, I obeyed his every whim in hopes he'd grant me justice. This marked the first time I openly defied him. He stumped his foot in furious frustration. Without a care for his thoughts, I pressed forward. Vanessa pitched her voice shrilly toward the Beast King's mountain palace. "Your Majesty, my little sister here says she wants to marry you. You'd better keep a close eye on her. In the blink of an eye, she might end up bearing another man's child for you." At last, I arrived before the gates of the mountain palace. Just as I was about to step through the entrance, an overwhelming pressure barred my way. A chilling voice commanded, "Leave at once." I pleaded urgently, "Beast King, I've been falsely accused with nowhere left in the entire Beastman continent. I beg for your sanctuary." He responded indifferently. "I overheard your conversation. You hold no interest for me." Dismissed. Steeling myself, I pressed on. "I know you shelter many abandoned beastfolk. I seek no crown, only to aid you in caring for them." After a moment's hesitation, he finally spoke coldly. "Come in." I successfully entered the Beastmount Palace and met the Orc King. He wasn't as aged as I'd imagined, though his hooded black robe obscured most of his face. I could still sense he resembled more of a cold-hearted youth. He remained aloof, keeping me at arm's length, merely assigning me to care for the disabled orcs, but I believe this is a good start. As long as I never leave the Beast Mountain Palace, Vanessa's false accusations against me will collapse on their own. Vanessa is moving much faster than in my previous life. The very next day, I felt the first stirrings of pregnancy in my womb. This sister is truly something. Having an affair the very next day after her wedding, I sensed it, this time. She's fooling around with a rat man. Seems she chose the beast that breeds the fastest, aiming to drive me away from the Orc King's side as soon as possible, lest he actually takes a liking to me. I immediately activated my bloodline evolution pregnancy art. Barring any mishaps, this birth won't produce an ordinary ratkin, but the divine beast Bowie, the six-eyed exorcist from Shanhai Jing. For days I tread carefully. torn between revealing the truth to the Orc King and fearing he'd banish me before my delivery. Fortunately, he paid me little heed. Even the subtle swell of my belly escaped his notice. Then came the 10th day. To everyone's shock, Vanessa and Kale arrived at the Beastmount Palace with an army of beast soldiers. Ratfolk have an incredibly short gestation period, merely 10 days, and Vanessa had clearly timed this perfectly. She shouted outside the palace gates, "Oh my dear sister. How should I even begin to address your situation? Days ago I saw you sneaking around with the rat folk, and now I sense your pregnancy. Surely you haven't truly conceived that vile rodent's offspring." The Orc King nearby instinctively glanced at my belly upon hearing my sister's words. His brow furrowed slightly when he noticed my rounded abdomen, yet he refrained from questioning me. Vanessa kept shouting outside, "Juno, come out this instant. Let me examine you. I won't have you embarrassing our blessed Lotus reputation." Soon after, Kale's voice joined the commotion. "Orc King, I demand to inspect Juno's purity for you. If you don't release Juno now, I'll lead my troops to storm the Beastmount Palace." Flashing his draconian prince status, Kale clearly held no respect for the Orc King he deemed feeble. "I can't let them capture me. I know they'd get me alive upon seeing my pregnancy, just to examine what monstrous spawn I carry. The ratkin inside me hasn't fully evolved yet. When the time comes, I won't be able to explain myself no matter what I say." I turned to the Orc King with pleading eyes, on the verge of tears from sheer desperation. With a trembling voice, I protested, "Your Majesty, please believe me, I've done nothing improper. This is all due to the fertility magic of our blessed Lotus." Before I could finish, he raised his hand to silence me. He strode straight to the palace gates, seeing the Orc King emerge alone. Kale immediately demanded, "Where's that bitch Juno?" Vanessa chimed in mockingly, "Probably knocked up with some bastard spawn." Too ashamed to show her face, the moment their words hung in the air, two sharp cracks rang in my ears. The Orc King raised his hand and struck each of them across the face. The usually arrogant Kale froze momentarily before shouting at the Orc King, How dare you strike me?" The Orc King declared with icy finality, "So long as I remain on this throne. You are all my subjects. My queen is not yours to judge. Leave within 3 breaths, or die." As he spoke, the Orc King unleashed a chilling wave of murderous intent. Even standing meters behind him, I could feel the overwhelming pressure of his royal aura. This was the Orc King. Though he'd withdrawn from worldly affairs for years, no new ruler had risen to challenge his throne, a testament to his unfathomable power. Kale sobered up after witnessing the Orc King's formidable power. He merely said, "Perhaps we've misunderstood, but let me remind the Orc King, don't disgrace our entire Orcish race over a mere woman." With that, he hastily fled with Vanessa in tow. Before leaving, Vanessa couldn't resist provoking, "Just wait and see, Orc King, Juno will birth nothing but a ratling. Would one of your noble bloodline truly spawn such low-born offspring? I knew she wouldn't let this rest. In the days to come, she'd keep sending me gifts relentlessly." At that moment, the Orc King strode back into the great hall. His gaze fell upon my abdomen again as he muttered in bewilderment, "How did this child come to be?" Even without knowing the full story, he stood up for me without hesitation, even declaring me as his princess consort before everyone. I was now completely convinced of the Orc King's integrity. He would undoubtedly believe my account, so I revealed everything to him. The fertility arts my sister and I practiced. I recounted every humiliation and resentment I'd endured across lifetimes, laying bare my soul to him. Even the proud Orc King couldn't help but stiffen upon hearing my words. His gaze softened considerably as he comforted me gently. "From now on, with me here, they'll never harm you again." I let out a long sigh of relief. This lifetime, I'd chosen the right path. A day later, I gave birth without complications. This is no ordinary rat folk, though resembling a rodent. It sports a pair of wings and emits infant cries that sound eerily like a lamb's bleating. These are the unmistakable traits of a juvenile bowie, the divine beast. Through bloodline evolutionary gestation, I've truly succeeded in birthing a long-extinct mythical beast from the classic of mountains and seas. During my labor, even the typically aloof Beast King set aside his usual demeanor, bustling about with tender concern by my side. Even though it wasn't his biological child, he was absolutely thrilled. Cradling the little mythical creature with joy, he exclaimed excitedly, "The heavens have truly bestowed such miraculous magic. Juno, you're absolutely incredible." Watching him like this, a warm feeling welled up in my heart. The child I brought into this world finally has a father. I told him to take the little troublemaker to another room and come back, saying I had something important to discuss. When he returned and asked what it was about, I suddenly pulled him onto the bed. Flustered and blushing, he gasped, "Juno, what are you doing?" With a whisper against his ear and warm breath, I murmured, "That little rascal isn't truly ours. I want to bear your child." He quickly pushed me away, saying with concern, "No, you're not fully recovered yet." I chuckled softly. "We blessed lotuses don't need recovery. Besides, If I don't get pregnant soon, Vanessa will surely try to gift me another child. I must conceive before Vanessa initiates her surrogacy ritual on me. Only then did the Orc King pull me into a fierce embrace. He kissed my cheek and exclaimed excitedly, even a mere rat king could evolve into the divine beast Bowie. Juno, I can't wait to see what kind of legendary offspring we'll produce together, after a night of passion. He gently held me in his arms. After sensing the pregnancy, I told him, our child will have a tiger's head, crimson hair like the vermilion bird, twin horns, and later develop a dragon's body with 4 limbs. The Beast King froze momentarily. You can already sense that much. The moment he finished speaking, he jolted upright in shock. He exclaimed in astonishment, it's Baze. Our child is actually the divine beast Baze. My face beamed with joy, for Baze is an auspicious creature of legend. I exclaimed excitedly, Your Majesty. Baze only descends to accompany wise and virtuous rulers. Our child is destined to help you restore your former glory and bring order to the Beastmen continent. The Orc King nodded resolutely. It's time to return to my rightful place. As he spoke, his black robe dissolved, revealing his true countenance. Now he stood radiant, his noble features bathed in a golden aura. Gazing into the distance, he murmured, a millennium ago, I descended to endure trials and witness the Orc King's brutality. I had no choice but to smite him with divine power. Yet for this very reason, the heavenly Tao punished me, trapping me here for years. Now with Baze's arrival, it's the heavenly Tao sign that I must return to my rightful place. I looked bewildered. If you're not the Orc King, then who are you? He narrowed his profound eyes. I am the Celestial Emperor. I just wanted the Orc King as my backer, but ended up with the most powerful patron across all 3 realms. For a moment, my mind went blank, head buzzing with disbelief. Then he pulled me into a tender embrace. Juno, you're my lucky star. It was you who helped me conceive Baze. I shall now return to the celestial realm. Hear my decree across all 3 realms. You shall be crowned empress, and our child shall inherit the mantle of beast god. With that, he raised his hand to erect a barrier around the beast palace, ensuring no disturbances would occur. Before departing, he whispered tenderly, Juno, wait for me. I shall return with the celestial host to attend your childbirth and cleanse the slander from your name. Tears of joy streamed down my face. No sooner had the celestial emperor left than Kale and Vanessa showed up at my doorstep. The barrier kept them from entering the beast palace, so they just stood outside hurling insults and curses. I turned a deaf ear to their provocations. I remained quietly inside the Beast Palace, awaiting the Celestial Emperor's return and Baze's birth. I know he'll be back soon. A day in heaven is a year on earth. Though the Celestial Emperor might have left just an hour ago, 10 days had already passed for me, my belly swelling once more. I could wait, but Kale and Vanessa clearly wouldn't. They returned to the Beast Palace once more, this time bringing formidable reinforcements. It was the ancestral patriarch of the draconian race, the immortalized Yellow Dragon Sovereign. Kale fawned before the Yellow Dragon Sovereign, elder ancestor. That decrepit Beast King is bad enough just squatting on the throne without ruling, but to wed some lowborn enchantress as consort and let her cuckold him daily, he's brought utter disgrace upon our Beastkin race. Vanessa chimed in, exactly, Lord Huanglong. Please break this barrier so we can catch them red-handed. With a cold snort, Lord Huanglong immediately began shattering the magical barrier. My heart raced. The Celestial Emperor's barrier was meant to repel beastmen, yet Kale had somehow enlisted divine forces. I quickly scooped up the divine cub Bowie and retreated into the hidden chamber, after bombarding the barrier relentlessly for a full day and night until his spiritual energy was nearly depleted. The Yellow Dragon Immortal Lord finally shattered the seal. The entire group surged forward in a chaotic rush, storming into the Beast Palace. Once inside the Beast Palace, they immediately began searching for any trace of me. When Kale saw those deformed beast infants, he instantly assumed they were my offspring. He executed her while hurling insults. Juno remains as vile as ever. What a waste of her divine fertility to bear 9 offspring at once. Vanessa sneered sarcastically. My dear sister truly outdoes herself, barely transformed, yet already spawning so many bastards. Immortal Lord Huanglong sighed at the sight. I thought you were exaggerating, but never imagined such a filthy whore truly existed in this world. Soon they broke through the chamber door and dragged me out. Vanessa suddenly snatched the little divine beast Bowie from my hands. She held him up high, her face alight with excitement. I told you Juno had been cavorting with those ratmen. She actually gave birth to this vermin spawn. Kale's face darkened as he shot Bowie a look of pure disgust. Then, just like in his past life, he mercilessly slammed it to the ground and crushed it underfoot. I screamed in despair, no, that's a divine. But before I could finish, Kale struck me with a palm strike, sealing my voice acupoint to silence me. Kale lifted Bowie's lifeless body and advanced toward me step by step. He was about to force-feed me that thing again, stomping away. He kept cursing. Damn rat sprouted wings, disgusting little mongrel. The blind fool couldn't even recognize a divine beast when he saw one. Immortal Lord Huanglong nearby froze mid-step at those words. A winged rat man. He glanced over curiously, finally noticing something's off. They've slain the divine beast. When the celestial emperor returns, they'll meet a fate worse than death. But Bowie had already been trampled beyond recognition by Kale. The yellow dragon immortal lord merely glanced at him. Noticing nothing amiss, he shook his head in frustration and bellowed with exasperation, "Orc King, where are you hiding? Show yourself before this immortal lord. How dare you with such a low-born wench? Come forth and meet your doom, then yield the throne to my dragon heir." In no time, Kale stood before me. With a look of contempt, he pried open my mouth and shoved the smashed Bowie inside. Meanwhile, Vanessa's gaze fell upon my swollen, pregnant belly. A sinister smile curled on her lips as a knife materialized in her hand. "You just gave birth, and now you're pregnant again. What's growing in there this time? A pig, or a dog? I'll cut it out right now and present the evidence before Lord Huanglong." With that, she actually pointed the blade at my abdomen. I fought desperately to break free. "This is our child with the Heavenly Emperor," the divine beast bays. "The Heavenly Emperor will proclaim to all realms, crowning him as the new beast deity. I must protect him at all costs." The more I struggled, the deeper the disgust grew in Kale's eyes. He simply pinned me to the ground, helping Vanessa restrain me. Vanessa drove the razor-sharp blade mercilessly into my abdomen. I heard the sickening sound of flesh being sliced open with terrifying clarity. Blood immediately gushed out in torrents. Tears of despair streamed down my face. Unable to speak, I could only cast a pleading glance at Kale. Yet the more I behaved this way, the more repulsed he became. He even raised his hand to choke my neck, shouting in fury, "You filthy wench, not only did you cheat, but you dare protect that bastard child. The Orc King may tolerate your wretchedness, but Kale, will not." As he spoke, Vanessa slid her hand into the bleeding gash across my abdomen. Her hands fumbled inside my abdomen until she found Baze's fetus. With a brutal yank, she tore out the barely formed Baze. Agony ripped through me. Yet I felt nothing. Vanessa held little Baze up to her face and spat on it. She sneered with contempt. "Another mongrel. Is it a dog or a bear? What the hell is this thing?" Kale snatched it away. "Let me see what kind of wretched creature this is." He examined it closely but failed to recognize it as the divine beast Baze, since he considered the evidence irrefutable and saw no risk of me spreading rumors. He unsealed my mute acupoint. He immediately confronted me. "Juno, tell me. Who are you cheating with this time? This thing looks like a cross between a dog and a tiger, with a snake's tail to boot. Don't tell me you're sleeping with multiple beastmen at once. Have you no self-respect?" With that, he shockingly raised Baze high again, intent on smashing her to death. I screamed in anguish. "No, my child is a divine beast, a Baze." But even as I pleaded, Kale refused to believe a word of it. He sneered contemptuously. "Have you lost your mind, Juno? A sullied wretch like you could never birth a sacred creature." With those words, he mercilessly dashed the Baze fetus against the ground once more. My heart died along with my child being thrown. I collapsed to the ground, still shaken to the core. Vanessa stepped forward and kicked Baze again, her face brimming with smug satisfaction. Baze let out a pained whimper from the kick. Immortal Lord Huanglong stiffened abruptly upon hearing the beast's roar in the distance. Vanessa chuckled lightly and called out, "Lord Huanglong, come see this. My shameless sister has whelped a mongrel beast." Lord Huanglong strode swiftly to the Baze fetus and bent down for closer inspection. His vision went black as he gasped in shock. He staggered backward, pointing at Baze with incoherent terror. "Oh no, this is actually a Baze divine beast cub. We're done for. This is catastrophic." Kale and Vanessa stared at each other in disbelief, momentarily stunned. Kale exclaimed furiously, "How is this possible? That shameless Juno could give birth to a divine beast?" Vanessa panicked. "No way. I clearly remember being with." She nearly let the secret slip. He quickly backtracked. "But I clearly saw her having an affair with a leopard man. How could she possibly give birth to a divine beast?" Ignoring them both, the immortal Lord Huanglong strode directly to the corpse of the young divine beast Bowie. After a thorough examination, his legs gave way, and he collapsed to the ground. "This is no ordinary rat. It's another primordial divine beast. Are you both blind? Look at the mess you've made." The yellow dragon immortal lord trembled with fear, his former arrogance completely gone. Kale simply refused to believe I could give birth to divine beasts. He looked at the yellow dragon immortal lord in confusion. "Ancestor, are you certain there's no mistake? Juno keeps giving birth to primordial divine beasts." The yellow dragon immortal lord glared at him, eyes nearly spitting fire. "How could I be mistaken? Those you've killed are all divine beasts, including the auspicious Baze." Only then did Kale panic. He looked at me in confusion. "Juno, what on earth is going on? How did you do this?" I collapsed to the ground, staring blankly at the dying Baze fetus, my heart turning to ashes. Kale whirled toward Vanessa and demanded sharply, "Did you lie to me? Didn't you say Juno could only bear mongrels?" Vanessa stammered, unable to form a coherent response. Quickly regaining composure, she interjected, "Enough of this, what's done is done, now we must deal with the consequences. Before word gets out, eliminate all witnesses and seal the leaks." Kale stared at this woman who surpassed even his ruthlessness, gradually realizing he'd been played, yet no better solution came to mind. So he turned his gaze to the Yellow Dragon Immortal Lord. The Yellow Dragon Immortal Lord sighed heavily. "So be it. What a cursed deed. Baze is a sacred beast of the three realms. If this gets back to the Celestial Court, they'll skin me alive. Do it. Leave no witnesses. We'll claim we were purging the Beast King's unfaithful concubine." Kale hesitated for a moment before advancing toward me step by step. When he pressed his blade against my neck, I didn't utter a single plea for mercy. Life and death mean nothing to me now. I only want to see them pay for what they've done. Kale's voice dropped low as he demanded, "Juno, tell me, how did you manage to give birth to a divine beast?" I glared at him, my fury twisting into bitter laughter. "Kale, the Celestial Emperor is my child's father. You'll soon face his wrath." At this, Kale let out a mirthless chuckle. "Juno, have you lost your mind? You think the Celestial Emperor would fancy you?" Just then, excited murmurs arose outside the hall. "Your Majesty. The birth of Baze is truly an auspicious sign for all three realms. As the Eastern Emperor, I shall present the Heavenly Queen with a grand gift in gratitude for bringing the child of destiny to the three realms. Our demon clan shall muster our full strength to assist you, Celestial Emperor, in establishing Baze as the new beast deity. My husband, the mighty Celestial Emperor, has finally returned." His return came swiftly, but it was already too late. By the time the auspicious beast lifted his heavenly punishment, our child had already become a lifeless corpse. My dead heart wrenched with agony once more. The Celestial Emperor soon arrived at the palace gates with Lord Donghua and other immortals in high spirits, only to be met with a scene of bloodshed and chaos. The Celestial Emperor was the first to see me lying in a pool of blood, along with the corpses of two divine beasts that had been slain. His divine radiance vanished instantly as a murderous aura engulfed him, his eyes turning blood red in an instant. Kale and Vanessa swiftly moved to shield the bodies of me and the child. Kale confronted the Celestial Emperor with a low, threatening voice. "Who are you?" "I am the Dragon Prince, here to execute the Beast King's unfaithful consort. All bystanders disperse immediately." As Kale's words still hung in the air, his ancestor the Yellow Dragon Immortal Lord fell to his knees in terror before the Celestial Emperor. "Celestial Emperor, this humble dragon begs for your punishment." Murderous intent radiated from the Celestial Emperor as he struck the Yellow Dragon Immortal Lord with a furious palm strike, reducing him to a pulpy mess. Only then did Kale and Vanessa panic. It finally dawned on them that I wasn't lying. My husband truly was the Heavenly Emperor who reigns over all three realms. Kale suddenly thrust his sword into Vanessa's heart. He shoved Vanessa down beside me and delivered a vicious kick. "You're the real bitch here. It's always been you using me all along." Then he knelt beside me, pleading, "Juno, I was wrong. Vanessa had me completely fooled. I beg you, plead with the Heavenly Emperor to spare my life." I didn't even glance at him, my gaze fixed on the Heavenly Emperor instead. "I never want to lay eyes on these disgusting creatures again. They shall be erased from all three realms, permanently." The Celestial Emperor's face twisted with rage as he growled, "This punishment is insufficient." With those words, he unleashed his divine pressure, saturating the entire Beastman continent with terrifying energy. Within moments, every Beastman who had consorted with Vanessa prostrated themselves in abject terror. The werewolves, serpent folk, and panther men all publicly confessed their affairs with Vanessa across the Beastkin continent, branding her with shame while clearing my name. Yet for the Celestial Emperor, this was far from sufficient. He summoned all those Beastkin before him, then swiftly restored Vanessa to health. He banished Vanessa Kale along with all her Beastkin lovers into a pocket dimension of his own creation. He barked at Kale and the others. "Whoever impregnates this vile woman first and brings out the dead child shall be the first to enter reincarnation." Thus, Vanessa got her wish, being fought over by hordes of orcs for their twisted affections. 3 months later, Kale emerged from the pocket dimension carrying the corpse of a draconid he'd slain himself, demanding reincarnation. But this was merely the beginning. After reincarnation, the Celestial Emperor cast him back into that accursed realm once more. Crushed by endless torment, Vanessa finally succumbed and passed away, yet the Heavenly Emperor plucked her from the cycle of rebirth, casting her back into that merciless microcosm. On and on it went, life after life. I returned to the celestial realm with the Heavenly Emperor, and a year later, we were blessed with another child, still that divine beast, Baze. But this wasn't enough for me. The humiliation and torment across 2 lifetimes taught me that relying on others is inferior to relying on oneself, so I persistently sought the Heavenly Emperor's favor, basking in his grace day after day. 3 years later, I gave birth to the ferocious beast Shang, its entire being radiating savage energy as if to avenge its mother's grievances. A decade later, I birthed the legendary Quinping, a creature so rare it shook all 3 realms. After 50 years, My first daughter arrived, the true primordial divine phoenix, whose birth summoned 100 birds in reverent homage. A century later, even the supreme divine beast Julong of the mythical mountains became my child. With an almost complete bestiary of mythical creatures from the classic of mountains and seas, I returned to the Beastmen continent. My arrival sent the Beastmen continent into frenzy, and the divine beasts following me made the Beastmen prostrate in worship. I became the mother of all beasts, revered yet feared in every beastman's heart. Wielding my authority as the mother of all beasts, I reshaped the laws of the Beastmen continent. This once filthy and savage land has finally embraced the peace it deserves. Story 2. My husband, with the support of my in-laws, shamelessly brought his mistress and their illegitimate child into our home. But the next day, a terrifying high temperature that hadn't been seen in 100 years struck. During the day, under the intense sun exposure, they forced me to go out and find supplies. At night, the mistress occupied the master bedroom, and my daughter and I could only huddle in the small storage balcony. Later, as the supplies became fewer and fewer, my daughter and I were locked on the balcony and dried into jerky by the sun. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to a week before the high temperature arrived. This time, I must protect myself and my daughter well and watch how that demonic family pays the price. 1. Olivia, my parents are here. Go buy some good dishes. Don't be stingy and embarrass me again. With the sound of the door opening, my husband Adrian's annoying voice rang out loudly in my ears. I suddenly came to my senses and glanced at the phone screen tightly held in my hand. It was June 26th. You silly woman. After all these years, you still have no sense of propriety when the elders arrive. You just stay cooped up in the room and don't say a word. In the few seconds I was in a daze, I heard my father-in-law's displeased scolding at the door again. These familiar words instantly made me break out in a cold sweat. It wasn't a dream. I was bullied by the mistress, abused by my in-laws, and my daughter and I were locked on the balcony and dried into mummies. And I had returned to the day when my in-laws suddenly moved into my house, which was about a week before the terrifying high temperature arrived. In my previous life, my in-laws, who had always lived in the countryside, suddenly moved into my house, saying they missed their son and wanted to stay for a while. Later, I came to understand, at that time, they had already planned to let the mistress and her illegitimate child into the house. My in-laws moved in early to put pressure on me together and force me to give in. They called my daughter a useless money loser and a little jinx, and forced me to share my husband with the mistress and be their servant. They even wanted me to transfer the house that I bought together with my husband to the mistress, so that their illegitimate child could go to school in a good school district. Of course, I wouldn't compromise. Just as I was going to find a lawyer to solve the problem through legal means the next day, a terrifying high-temperature disaster that hadn't been seen in hundreds of years struck. It was as if there were suddenly a few more suns in the sky, roasting the earth. During the day, the earth instantly became a furnace. Once you went out, you would be sunburned at the least, and at the worst, you would die of dehydration in a very short time. With so many extra people in the house, the remaining supplies could only last for 2 or 3 days. Despite the danger, they forced me to go out and find food. Later, as the high temperature became more and more severe and it was impossible to go out, they tied up my daughter and threatened me to sleep with the men in the building in exchange for supplies. But even so, my daughter and I didn't even have a place to sleep at night. The master bedroom was occupied by my husband and the mistress. My daughter's room was taken by the illegitimate child, and the only remaining guest room was occupied by my in-laws. My daughter and I could only sleep in the stuffy storage room on the balcony. Later, in order to save supplies, they locked us on the balcony and we were dried into mummies. What's even more hateful is that after the supplies were exhausted, they actually divided and ate the bodies of my daughter and me. Just thinking about the tragic deaths of my daughter and me in my previous life, my heart was instantly filled with anger like a barrel of gunpowder exploding. Heaven has given me another chance to start over. I must make Adrian's family pay for their crimes with their blood, too. I adjusted my mood a bit and walked out of the bedroom. I can't be too hasty. If I use force, I can't beat this family at all, and the terrifying high temperature is coming, and they will reap what they sow. Mom and Dad, I'm sorry. I just fell asleep. There are fresh fish and shrimp that I just bought in the refrigerator. I'll go and make dinner for you. I tried my best to put on a look of fear and trepidation, but my mother-in-law rolled her eyes and directly threw a large woven bag in her hand heavily at me. We came all the way here, and you're just going to make such greasy free things, braised pork, pork rib soup, and stewed pork knuckle. Also, quickly deal with these potatoes I brought. My father-in-law, who didn't see me come out to greet them, was already in a bad mood. He quickly picked up my mother-in-law's words and scolded me. Really? You spend my son's money and eat my son's food, but you're even reluctant to buy some meat. Sooner or later, I'll drive you, a wasteful person, out and let you suffer. Adrian and I started dating in our sophomore year of college, the year we graduated. My parents unfortunately died in a car accident. Adrian took the opportunity to propose to me, who was helpless at that time, and I agreed without thinking much. After marriage, he was obedient to me in everything. I thought I had met the right person in this life. So I gave him all the inheritance left by my parents for investment and helped him start his own company. Looking back now, his obedience to me after marriage was just for my parents' inheritance. I was really blinded by love back then. After getting the inheritance, Adrian immediately became a completely different person. Not only did he indulge in a dissolute life outside, but he even let his mistress and their illegitimate child enter the house and dreamed the absurd dream of having 2 wives. Okay, I'll go to the market to buy meat now. You guys take a rest first. I hated them so much in my heart that I wanted to strangle them right away, but I was still smiling gently on my face. The happier this family is now, the more miserable they will cry later. 3. Early the next morning, on the pretext that my daughter had a research and study activity, I took her away from home with a small suitcase, but before leaving, I secretly took my husband's ID card and mobile phone and quietly installed several clear pinhole cameras in several hidden corners of the room. When I said I was leaving, my in-laws, who usually couldn't wait for me to stay at home as a nanny, didn't show any signs of anger. Instead, they showed a hint of secret joy. I knew that they were now thinking about how to bring the mistress and her illegitimate child to the house for a reunion. I left the house on the pretext of having something to do. Firstly, I needed to hurry up and prepare a shelter to deal with the terrifying high temperature. Secondly, I wasn't sure if the high temperature this time would arrive on the same day as in my previous life. In case the disaster came early, I had to let the mistress and her son come to my house in advance so that this whole family could be together and none of them could escape. Mom, why are you lying to Dad and Grandma and Grandpa? My daughter is already in the 1st grade of junior high school. She is very sensible, although she doesn't understand why I suddenly want to take her away with this excuse. She has always stood by my side unconditionally and will never expose me in front of my husband and in-laws. It wasn't until I took her to the car that she asked in confusion. I couldn't help feeling a pang of sadness in my heart. Lily, something very terrible will happen in a few days, and Dad, Grandma, and Grandpa will hurt us. Mom can only take you out to live. Can you keep this secret for Mom? It seemed that seeing my serious and sad expression, my daughter Lily's expression also became serious. She nodded vigorously and hugged her small school bag tightly. Of course, I will always be Mom's best friend. Looking at my daughter's trusting expression, my tightly heart finally relaxed a little. There is still a week left, and it's still able to make preparations. I drove straight to a new residential area on the outer ring of the city. Back then, although I was stupid enough to give all the inheritance left by my parents to that scumbag for investment, there was an old house that was too old to catch my husband's eye, so it was spared. And last year, the old house was suddenly notified of demolition, and a new house and a resettlement fee were compensated on the outer ring of the city. Fortunately, at that time, I had gradually woken up from the dream of my marriage and didn't tell my husband about this. Now, it has finally left a way out for my daughter and me. The master from a decoration company that I had contacted in advance was already waiting for me. The new house is on the 12th floor, although it's not as high as the 20th floor of our previous house. The doors, windows, and sun protection and heat insulation must be further strengthened. The resettlement fee was 500,000 yuan. I no longer hesitated to use this money and had to spend it where it mattered most. I directly asked the master to use the best materials to carry out the best sun protection and heat insulation treatment on the walls, and it had to be rushed. It must be completed within a week. When the master heard that money was not a problem, he was also very straightforward. He started measuring the dimensions immediately and promised me that he would definitely complete the project on time and with high quality. After that, I checked the house inside and out. Fortunately, it was a newly decorated house, and the quality was acceptable. I just needed to purchase some home appliances and furniture before my daughter and I could move in. After calculating the remaining resettlement fee in my hand, I took out my husband's mobile phone and ID card and borrowed money from all the lending platforms online. After transferring all the money to my card, I immediately deleted all the records. The scumbag man had a good credit. I successfully borrowed nearly 5 million yuan. Anyway, this family is almost doomed, so it's better to spend his money. This money is enough for my daughter and me to deal with the terrifying high temperature. As for how to repay it later, who will repay it, we'll worry about that after the high temperature passes. Looking at my daughter's delighted expression in the new house, a warm current of excitement welled up in my heart. This time, I must live well with my daughter, for this residential area is relatively remote, and there aren't many residents who have moved in, but for safety reasons, I asked the decoration company to add a layer of sound insulation materials to the room and also bought thick blackout curtains, using the excuse that my daughter was going to learn to play the piano and I was afraid of disturbing the neighbors. After all, when supplies are in short supply, my daughter and I, a mother and daughter who are weak and alone, are very likely to be targeted by others. It's necessary to try our best to erase our living traces. After 2 days of shopping with my daughter, all the necessary furniture and home appliances were arranged. In addition to 3 large vertical air conditioners, I also purchased an air purification system, a water purifier and water purification tablets, as well as several small power generation devices and solar panels. After the terrifying high temperature arrives, the power supply in many places will be interrupted. So I must make full preparations. After preparing the large items, I didn't have time to rest and quickly went to the market to wholesale daily necessities and food ingredients. The first thing to buy was convenient food that was easy to store. I bought dozens of boxes of instant noodles, compressed biscuits, ham sausages, self-heating rice, freeze-dried vegetables, and dried goods such as mushrooms and kelp. Although the nutritional value of these things is reduced, they are the most important things to ensure the survival of my daughter and me. Then I bought several carts of fresh meat. I paid some handling fees and asked the boss to process them for me and cut them into small pieces and pack them in batches. In addition, there were the fish and shrimp, hot pot balls, ice cream, wontons, etc. that my daughter liked to eat. I stopped only when I estimated that the freezers were almost full. I also ordered a batch of barreled water, but I was afraid that the load-bearing capacity of my house was not enough, so I called several neighbors who hadn't moved in yet and said that I wanted to rent their houses on the pretext of preparing to use them as an office. Fortunately, the neighbor next door was an aunt I was familiar with when I was a child. She and her child had moved abroad, so she readily agreed to rent it to me. We have 2 households on 1 floor. I simply asked the master to secretly install a sturdy anti-theft door at the elevator entrance. This way, it would be safer for me to get supplies from the neighbor's house next door. There are less than a week left before the high temperature arrives. Even if the property management finds out and wants to cause trouble for me, it's too late. After doing all these things and confirming that I had enough space to store things, I went to buy enough commonly used family medicines, toilet paper, sanitary napkins, seasonings, washing powder, etc. for 2 to 3 years of use. Finally, I also bought a lot of snacks, extracurricular books, and game consoles that my daughter liked, to persevere in the apocalypse. In addition to basic supplies, these spiritual needs are also very important. Looking at the dozens of pages of supplies on my list that were slowly ticked off, my previously uneasy mood gradually eased. In this way, if there are no special circumstances, my daughter and I can at least stay in the new house for a year or 2, and I believe in the country. Although this is a super disaster apocalypse that hasn't been seen in hundreds of years, it will definitely be able to restore social order within a year. Mom, are we going to stay in the new house and wait for the high temperature to arrive? My daughter asked me nervously. In these days, she has gradually understood what will happen next, but she didn't cry or make a fuss. Instead, she volunteered to be my little assistant. I smiled and shook my head. We still have to go home once and take away all the things we didn't have time to take before. After all, even a small mosquito is still meat. I don't want to leave that family with any chance of survival. 5. Although I was busy these days, I still found some time to check the surveillance at home. Sure enough, as I expected, the day after I left home, my husband and in-laws brought the mistress and her son to the house. When Adrian saw my daughter and me suddenly coming back home, he was only shocked for a moment and then immediately put on a look of righteousness. Just in time you're back. I was still struggling with how to introduce Grace to you. As he spoke, he skillfully put his arm around the waist of the mistress beside him, as if he was introducing his wife to an outsider. This woman named Grace leaned against Adrian's arms as she spoke, and looked at me with a provocative smile on her lips. Hello, sister, I'll be joining this family from now on. Please be more understanding. I couldn't help rolling my eyes in my heart. This mistress didn't study hard when she was a child. She must have watched too many cheesy TV dramas. She didn't know that the apocalypse was coming and was still competing with me here. Seeing my expressionless and silent appearance, my mother-in-law probably thought I was going to lose my temper and start a quarrel. She immediately became anxious, quickly hugged the fat boy beside her into her arms, and gave me a fierce glare. Don't be ungrateful. After being married for so many years, you haven't even given birth to a son. In our hometown, you don't even have the qualification to divide the homestead. Our Adrian has a conscience and didn't divorce you. He couldn't bear to abandon you. A smart woman should be more magnanimous so that the family can be harmonious and everything can go well. Okay, I didn't say I disagree. Feeling my daughter's shoulders beside me trembling more and more, I couldn't bear it anymore and interrupted my mother-in-law's words. I glanced at Adrian and the woman beside him, and deliberately showed a helpless bitter smile. Actually, I've noticed something was wrong for a long time. I'm not a fool either. But what can I do? Grace is already here. From now on, we're all family. Let's get along well. When my father-in-law and mother-in-law heard me say this, they exchanged a look and were full of pride. In their eyes, it was reasonable for me, their daughter-in-law who had always been weak and easily bullied, to react like this. However, my husband didn't show any particular expression either. He just let out a long sigh. A deep sense of sorrow welled up in my heart. After enduring everything passively for so long, they thought I deserved to bear all this, even with my daughter still by my side. They were so brazen and didn't care about the child's feelings at all. In fact, I didn't plan to bring my daughter back at first, but my daughter seemed to have sensed everything a long time ago and insisted on coming back to accompany me. "I'm starving, Grandma. I want to eat pig's trotters. I want to eat drumsticks." The chubby boy who was tightly held in my mother-in-law's arms suddenly started shouting and yelling. He broke free from my mother-in-law's embrace and picked up a toy on the ground and threw it around. Suddenly, my eyes tightened. The doll he was throwing in his hand was the most precious doll of my daughter. I immediately got angry and was about to step forward to stop him. Unexpectedly, my daughter beside me gently tugged at my hand. The next second, I was stunned for a moment. Then I saw my daughter looking at me. Her eyes were red, but she tried her best to smile at me and shook her head. I instantly understood. My daughter knew what I wanted to do. She was willing to endure some grievances herself and also wanted to help me. I squeezed my daughter's little hand tightly and resisted the urge to give this chubby kid a good kick. "Don't cry, don't cry. It's my fault. Auntie, don't you want to eat pig's trotters? Auntie will make them for you." My mother-in-law glared at me. "You're such an adult, yet you're not as sensible as a child. Hurry up and cook. You're just being annoying here." I took a deep look at this family. 2 adults and 2 elderly people were all coaxing that chubby boy. It seemed that my daughter and I were just servants in this family. I led my daughter away quickly and secretly put Adrian's phone and ID card back in their original places. Compared to the millions of yuan I borrowed using his information, a small pig's trotter was nothing. "Eat it. Let's see how long you can still be so arrogant." These days, I'm still in charge of everything in this house and cooking for the whole family. They seemed to take it for granted that I had accepted this abnormal life of having a husband with 2 wives. But this was exactly in line with my plan. Every time I went out, I would secretly take some things from the house and send them to the new house my daughter and I prepared. There were my daughter's toys, books, our clothes, and the stored food at home. I wanted them to gradually experience the feeling of running out of everything. I only left the ingredients needed for daily meals in the refrigerator. Once the high temperature arrived and there was no one to find food for them anymore, I wondered if this family could still happily get through 3 days. As the day of the terrifying high temperature drew closer, the weather also became drier. It was sunny and exposure all day long, and the flowers, plants, and trees downstairs began to wither. While we were having a meal, the news was being broadcast on TV. According to experts' predictions, there will be continuous high-temperature weather in the coming period, but except for my daughter and me who were listening attentively, the others in the family didn't care at all. Well, after all, there was high temperature every year, and it was usually just a matter of 10 days or half a month. Who would have thought that this year it would be a disaster that hadn't been seen in 100 years? The corner of my mouth curled into a cruel smile. The long-awaited terrifying high temperature was finally coming. 6. Adrian, I signed up our daughter for a research and study activity. She's going to City J for half a month. I'll take her to catch the plane later. While they weren't talking, I suddenly interjected. Sure enough, my in-laws immediately frowned and started scolding me. "Where are you going? What's the use of a girl participating in these things? You can't earn a single cent yourself all day long, and you just know how to waste our Eric's money. Besides, there are so many things to do at home. Who will do them if you leave?" The Mistress Grace also rolled her eyes and kept picking meat into her son's bowl. "That's right. Those so-called research and study activities are all scams, sister. Don't be fooled." I knew they didn't want me to spend money on my daughter. Moreover, now I was the nanny for this big family. If I ran away, who would serve them? I wasn't in a hurry and smiled. "Don't worry, I've hired an auntie who will come to the house every day to cook and clean. Also, Mom and Dad, my friend in City J said that she brought back a lot of precious health products from abroad and wants to give them to me, since my parents are no longer here. I thought I could just bring them back and give them to you." By the way, as expected, the wrinkled faces of my in-laws immediately relaxed, but there was no auntie and no health products. What awaited them was only the intense, terrifying high temperature, as well as an empty kitchen and refrigerator. When Adrian heard me say this, his expression also softened a lot. He rummaged in his pocket for a long time and took out 50 yuan in cash and handed it to our daughter. "This is all the change I have. Dad, take it and buy some snacks. Remember to come back early. Grandma, Grandpa, and your little brother all miss you." My daughter didn't say anything and took the 50 yuan note. I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. Miss their daughter. I'm afraid they're just worried that there will be no one to be a maid for their young master these days. Although my daughter was only in the 1st grade of junior high school, they treated her as my little nanny. They made my daughter take care of their precious grandson every day and even asked her to run errands to buy things from time to time. I wanted my daughter to find an excuse to go back to the new house and stay there first, but my daughter flatly refused and insisted on staying by my side. Fortunately, this kind of life was finally coming to an end. I quickly took my daughter and left home that afternoon and also stopped by the vegetable market to buy a full carload of fresh fruits and vegetables. I was lucky. As soon as I got home, judging from my previous experience of the high temperature in my past life, the temperature outside had at least reached around 60 degrees Celsius, 7. When I woke up early the next morning, I saw through the window that the trees downstairs had already drooped their branches and leaves feebly. This was a precursor to them dying. I browsed the news, and sure enough, many people started paying attention to this high temperature weather. Schools had suspended classes, and some companies had also asked their employees to work from home. Many people were still joking, saying that they could finally take a high-temperature vacation and receive high-temperature subsidies, but only I knew that this disaster was not just about high temperature, there was also strong radiation, and I didn't know how many people's lives it would claim. I didn't have any relatives left, nor did I have any close friends. Other than protecting myself and my daughter, I really had no way to help others. After all, our abilities were limited. On the one hand, I didn't know if others would believe me. On the other hand, I was more afraid that if I revealed too much, we would be targeted in times of crisis. I could only leave comments under some news articles about the severity of this disaster, hoping that everyone could take advantage of the fact that they could still go out today and quickly purchase some supplies. As long as one person saw my message and went to prepare supplies, it would be good, and my phone was surprisingly quiet all day long. My husband didn't even call to ask if my daughter and I were safe. I turned on the surveillance to take a look. There were some ingredients that I had deliberately left in the refrigerator, which could still allow them to have a good meal for a day. Sure enough, none of them went out. This actually made me heave a sigh of relief. I was really afraid that they would suddenly realize the seriousness of the situation and rush out to buy supplies. On the second day after the terrifying high temperature arrived, at noon, my daughter and I were blowing the air conditioner and having a small hot pot when the phone rang harshly. "Hello, Olivia, where's the part-time maid you said you hired? She didn't come yesterday, and why hasn't she come today?" It was my husband Adrian's somewhat impatient roar on the other end of the phone. As I expected, they had a big meal yesterday. There wasn't much food left in the refrigerator, and the so-called part-time auntie didn't show up either. They were instantly in a hurry. I pretended to be in a dilemma. You've also seen this extreme weather. The auntie probably doesn't dare to go out. You can just go downstairs and buy some food yourself. I guess the high temperature will drop in a few days. Today's weather was obviously hotter than yesterday. The scorching sun was roasting the city. The TV reported that there were countless people suffering from heatstroke, and some people who had been exposed to the sun for a long time had been sent to the ICU for emergency treatment. The host kept appealing to everyone not to go out unless it was necessary, so even though I said that, according to the selfish and timid nature of that family, no one would be willing to go out to buy supplies. "It's all your fault. You had to go out at this time. Hurry up and get back here." Sure enough, Adrian was silent for a few seconds on the other end, cursed me a few times impatiently, and then hung up the phone immediately. I had just turned on the surveillance to see their chaotic situation when my daughter suddenly said, "Mom, can you cast the screen? I want to see it too." I looked at my daughter and hesitated a bit. Actually, I didn't really want my daughter to get too involved. After all, she was just a teenager. Facing such a father and grandparents, I was really afraid that it would leave a shadow in her heart, but my daughter seemed to see my hesitation and smiled at me. "It's okay. In fact, I've known all these things for a long time. I've always understood that they don't love me at all." I was really sad at first, but now I feel that as long as Mom is with me, I'm not afraid of anything. Looking into my daughter's bright eyes, I no longer had any scruples. I cast the surveillance video onto the TV and regarded it as our digital side dish while eating. As soon as it was turned on, the crying of the mistress's son came through the speakers like it was piercing our eardrums. "I'm starving. I want to eat. I want to eat meat." Adrian sat on the sofa with a bad expression, holding his phone. He was probably still angry with me. The mistress and my mother-in-law were coaxing the chubby boy on one side. My mother-in-law was holding a piece of potato in her hand. "Good boy, eat a piece of potato first. It was grown by Grandma. It's even more delicious than meat." This was a bag of potatoes that my mother-in-law brought on the day she came. I thought it was unlucky to take their things, so I just left them for them, but I guess that the only thing they could consider as food at home now was probably these potatoes. The chubby boy cried for a long time. I guess he realized that he couldn't cry for meat anymore. He looked at the potato in his hand, snatched it, and started swallowing it mouthful by mouthful. "Mom, the potato in this hot pot is really delicious." My daughter picked up a piece of soft and waxy potato that had been cooked, dipped it in the sauce, and took small bites. I smiled and picked a few more pieces of freshly cooked beef rolls for my daughter. "Yeah, but don't eat too much. If you eat too many potatoes, It will make your stomach feel uncomfortable. Don't worry, unlike them, we have so many delicious things at home. We can still eat for a long time. My daughter and I looked at each other and smiled knowingly. In the following days, the high temperature weather didn't drop but rose instead. The outdoor temperature was estimated to have reached 80 or 90 degrees Celsius. The news reported that more and more people had died from heat stroke. Except for a very small number of people who had special radiation-proof suits and could barely go out, ordinary people simply couldn't go out to buy supplies. Olivia, aren't you coming back yet? Even though they knew that they couldn't go out because of the terrifying high temperature, my in-laws and husband still called me repeatedly to urge and curse at me. What can I do otherwise? Why don't you fly a plane to pick me up? I was lying on the sofa watching TV and sneered. Then quickly contact the boss who usually delivers goods for us, ask him to send us some supplies. Adrian was almost roaring. In the past, I would always participate in the group purchase group of the community. When the weather was bad occasionally, I would also contact the boss of the community store to deliver goods. Without me, Adrian hardly knew how to buy supplies. Are you crazy? You don't even dare to go out yourself. How can the boss deliver goods to you? Just wait, maybe it will get better in a few days. I was too lazy to say another word to him and directly hung up the phone. These days, the only thing they could eat at home was potatoes. Sure enough, adults could endure it for a while, but that chubby son had been crying all day long, saying that his stomach hurt and burned and that he wanted to eat delicious food and meat. Of course, there was also a supplies mutual assistance group in the community. Adrian and Grace joined it as soon as possible. At first, there were still some people who were willing to exchange or sell supplies, but gradually, seeing that the situation was not right, the group had become a place for simple help-seeking, and almost no one responded. No, there were also large-scale power outages and water cutoffs everywhere in the city, as well as fires caused by dryness, but fortunately, the community where Adrian lived was a high-end wealthy area with relatively complete facilities. The community also had its own power generation system, so I could still continue to watch the surveillance videos every day as a form of entertainment. When my husband and the mistress saw that there was really no other way, they started pushing my father-in-law and mother-in-law to go out and find supplies. Mom and Dad, look, the baby is almost fainting from hunger. If something happens to your precious grandson because of hunger, can you live with yourselves? The mistress was crying and holding the child, starting to engage in moral kidnapping. When my mother-in-law saw that the matter fell on her, she quickly pushed it back to my father-in-law. Old man, you know my legs and feet are not good. You go. Your body is better than mine. Just go to the supermarket at the door and have a look. As long as you're quick enough. Just grab a little something and come back, and we'll have something to eat. Pushed by his son and daughter-in-law and urged by his wife, my father-in-law had no choice but to put on a raincoat as a sun protection suit and go out to see if he could find something to eat. But until the next day, I didn't see my father-in-law come back. Well, in this high temperature, and with a raincoat on, he was probably cooked as soon as he went out. The terrifying high-temperature weather has persisted for a month. Although the state has been providing continuous rescue efforts, the temperature remains stubbornly high. With limited manpower and resources, it's simply impossible to take care of everyone, and the dark side of human nature is gradually emerging. The building where Adrian lives is mostly populated by wealthy people. Some families with ample supplies have started selling small amounts of food, not for money, but in exchange for women. Just as I experienced in my previous life, such absurd and malicious deeds have actually found responders. Many people in various groups have begun posting photos of their wives, and even their daughters, hoping to exchange them for some food. I saw in the surveillance footage that despite Grace's crying and resistance, Adrian still sent out her photos, as if afraid that the wealthy man with supplies wouldn't be interested. He specifically chose pictures of Grace wearing sexy pajamas. Grace cried and refused, but she, who had previously used moral coercion on her in-laws, was now on the receiving end. What's wrong with you sacrificing yourself for your son? He's the only heir in our family. If anything happens to him, you couldn't make up for it even if you died. As a petite woman, she had no chance against them and could only go out, weeping, to sell her body in exchange for supplies. I took a sip of hot tea and watched as one ugly message after another scrolled by, still feeling a chill down my spine. In my previous life, I was the one forced to obtain supplies in this way. Adrian and his mistress tied up our daughter and threatened me. He glared at me viciously. If you don't go, I'll send your daughter to sleep with others. She's old enough, and there are plenty of people who like young girls. I'm very grateful that my daughter doesn't have the memories of our previous life. Otherwise, hearing such words from her biological father, even the strongest-willed person would find it hard to let go. Fortunately, there are only 3 households in the building where I live, and the other 2 are occupied by elderly people. They have the habit of stockpiling supplies in advance. As soon as the weather turned strange, the elderly had already stored enough food. When they saw me living alone with my daughter, they even came to ask concernedly if we had enough food at home. I'm very grateful that they thought of me in such a difficult time, so, whenever I cook something delicious at home, I'll also send some to the elderly, and every time they accept my gifts, they won't take them for free. Instead, they'll share some of the food they cooked that day with me. In this way, we took care of each other, and surprisingly, we didn't find this apocalyptic disaster too unbearable. 10. Just when I thought things would settle down like this, unexpectedly. An even more dramatic scene unfolded when Adrian sent Grace over. He himself was taking a fancy to buy that wealthy man with a special fetish. The man promised Adrian that if he accompanied him once, he would give him a pack of instant noodles. This time, Adrian was the one being morally coerced, so, at night, only the mother-in-law and the mistress's son were left at home. The next morning, the couple limped back, supporting each other, holding a few packs of instant noodles. Olivia, you $%. You'd better die out there, don't come back. Furious and embarrassed, since I blocked his phone number, Adrian started sending me a stream of curse-filled text messages. Presumably, he was regretting that if I were still at home, they could have exchanged for more instant noodles. I've gotten used to watching the surveillance footage of Adrian's family every day. Sometimes, if I miss the live broadcast, I'll rewind to see if there's anything interesting. But when I just opened the surveillance this day, the mother-in-law's bloodless face was staring straight at the ceiling. Her head had been smashed in by something. I couldn't help but let out a scream and quickly flipped through the unviewed playback. It turned out that Adrian and Grace thought that since they had to sell their bodies to get food, why should the mother-in-law enjoy the fruits of their labor for free? They stopped giving her food, at most leaving her a few sips of the soup from the instant noodles. Finally, the starving mother-in-law crouched at the door with a rolling pin, planning to knock them out when they came home early in the morning and grab a pack of instant noodles. But how could an old woman who had been starving for so long be a match for two young people? She missed her strike, and instead, Grace grabbed a vase and started smashing it against her head. Screaming, just as I was in shock, the live surveillance footage started moving again. Adrian actually fetched a boning knife from the kitchen, each of them holding a knife. They crouched on the ground, doing something to the mother-in-law's body. I couldn't bear to watch anymore and quickly turned off the screen. The tragic fate that my daughter and I suffered in our previous life was now playing out on this family. 11. The mother-in-law was old, weak, and skinny, and couldn't sustain the starving family of three for long. Before long, Adrian collapsed. I saw him lying on the sofa, clutching his buttocks, presumably, after sleeping with that wealthy man for too long. A certain part of his body could no longer take it. I'm not sure if the supplies at the wealthy man's place were running low or if he had grown tired of the couple, but after one return, Grace never went out again. They survived on the few remaining packs of instant noodles at home, and every day they had to endure the crying of their hungry son. I didn't check the surveillance for a while. When I opened it again, Adrian, who had been lying on the sofa, was only half left. Grace and her son, with messy hair and dirty faces, looked like two ravenous madmen, gobbling up the meat in the pot. I silently saved some of the surveillance videos showing the mother-in-law and Adrian being killed and cannibalized. I don't know how long Grace and her son can survive. In the previous life, when the high temperature became too severe to go out, they tied up my daughter and threatened me to sleep with men in the building in exchange for supplies. Naturally, the law will punish such perverted cannibals, and shortly after Adrian's death, before his body was even completely consumed, the high temperature suddenly dropped. After several months, the first rain finally fell on this land. After the downpour, a rainbow appeared in the sky. Many people wept with joy at the sight of it. The terrifying high-temperature weather had finally passed. The state never gave up. After the disaster ended, communication, water, and electricity were quickly restored, and social order gradually returned to normal. I don't know how many incidents like Adrian's family's occurred, but I believe that from now on, there will be no more. On the first day when it was safe to travel normally, I took the evidence I had saved and handed it over to the police. 12. Grace was taken away by the police from the survivor rescue station. She was arrested on charges of intentional homicide and malicious destruction of a corpse. I truly underestimated this woman's psychological resilience. After going through all this and cannibalizing two people, she still didn't go crazy. When she was arrested, not knowing that I had been monitoring them all along, she cried and pleaded with the police, saying that it was all done by other people in the building. She's likely to be sentenced to death. As for her child, although he also ate human flesh, due to his young age, he was sent to an orphanage. Adrian's family, thus, received the punishment they deserved. When the police called to thank me for providing strong evidence, I looked out the window at the gradually reviving greenery and let out a long sigh of relief. The anxiety that had been plaguing me for so long finally dissipated. Since Adrian and I were still legally married, I inherited all of his estate. I sold that terrifying house where 2 murders had taken place at a low price, moved to a new city, and started a new life with my daughter. With Adrian's money, I opened a small flower shop. Although it doesn't earn a huge profit, it can at least cover the daily expenses for my daughter and me. In fact, With Adrian's inheritance and the untraceable online loans I obtained, we don't have any financial problems. But it still feels good to reintegrate into society and have my own small business. My daughter has gotten rid of the shadows from her past family life. She has become significantly more confident and cheerful, made new friends, and has been maintaining top grades in school. The nightmare that haunted us has finally faded away. It turns out that after the storm, there really is a rainbow.